Okay. So I'm going to do some more work on this painting, and I like doing it this way because then I don't have such a time limit. And so, and if things don't go well, then I don't have to show you guys the video. So that's a nice backdoor for me. So I'm going to switch this video to the Nikon and do some work resolving details on this piece. So on Monday we talked about, oh, I have to join with my tablet so that I can see what I'm doing. Let's see, come on. All right. Waiting for my email to update. Okay. And now, there. Okay. Nope. No, I did not. Let's go here and pin this. Okay, good. And then, oops. So I don't have an image here. Oh, that's what I need to do. There we go. Okay. Yay. All right. I need to, there we go. See, I'm figuring things out because the tablet is different from the laptop. All right. So I've been pondering my painting here, and one question that you had, that Lynn had on Monday, was that when do you start resolving details? And the answer to that is the best time to start resolving details is when you have your larger questions answered. So for instance, you feel that your values are correct as you can get them, that you feel that your drawing is as correct as you can get it, that you feel that your areas of color are just about where you want them to be, with maybe some room for tweaking, which is something I'm going to do some more of today. Because if you put in tiny little details and then you have to make large global changes similar to the changes I made here in this background and darkening in here, then you're going to lose the details that you put in. And I have lost some of the detail that I put in here on the blueberry leaves because I've glazed. I've pushed these leaves back. I pushed this leaf back. I've adjusted color. And then I darkened this background, and I've lost some of the sharp edges that I had put in. And that's not a tragedy because I can do this again, and it'll be fresher. And in fact, also, I'll be able to make better choices because I have my values in place back here. And I can decide now what I want to pull out forward and what I want to have recede. So there are a few things that I want to do today. I want to take care of this area in the background, which I neglected when I put this dark in. And so I'm probably going to make this dark and have it get a little lighter as it comes down here. And then these folds will be less obvious. And I'm going to see how that works. And if I don't like that, I can wipe it off. And I can go the other direction, which would be to mix up an opaque, maybe even an opaque glaze or an opaque paint that has some Galkit in it, like this color. and then pull this light over behind my jug. But I don't want to, I want this still to be dark here. So I would be just pulling it back here very subtly. So that's another option. Those are two options with this background here. I also want to take this idea of these drapery folds and continue it more subtly back here, because right now there isn't anything back here that says this drape, what's happening with this drapery. And I'm going to keep it simple. I also want to take this blue-green that's back here. You can see it because I can see it on my tablet, which I like. I like this blue-green. And I want to try bringing this blue-green up against this, the outside of this leaf here, and have the leaf be slightly silhouetted against this light, slight lightness, a little bit lighter than this. And I want to pull that blue-green back here and figure out the outside of this jug handle a little, right here. And also have that be silhouetted against that slightly lighter, and see how that works. And then I want to figure out this area of light back here better, and this lower edge of the jug, and then maybe continue losing that edge right there. And then I also want to take, now you might not be able to see this too well because the subtleties don't really show up very well on the Nikon, but this side over here is more violet and a little darker in value than this right here, because I was pulling this out against the shadow. But I decided that I like this being a little darker in value, a little cooler in color. And I'm going to pull that. I'm going to mix up some color. I'm going to pull that over here, and I'm going to reduce this edge of the shadow, that contrast. Maybe I'll make it a narrower band of contrast. I'm going to feel that out. But I like how this lays down flat better than this, which comes forward. Too much for my taste. So I want to figure that out. Then I want to, I'm probably going to mess around with the jug a little bit in here, soften this edge, see if I want to put some reflected light in here, a little bit of light right there, play with that, and pull out some details in my leaves, maybe put in that light reflection right in here behind the blueberry leaves there. So things like that. So I'm starting to wrap things up. Also this light in here, I have to refine. That right there, that we can see behind the apple. I have to refine that. So I'm starting to wrap things up. I'm making decisions about what I've already done. I'm making adjustments. Now you can think about painting that when people are painting more loosely, they might be making fewer adjustments than when they're painting in a tighter fashion and resolving things more. Maybe they're making more adjustments than when they are painting loosely and they just sort of leave things loose and rough and unresolved. See, I'm choosing my brushes right now. What am I going to do first? So, okay. I want to see how this is going to work if I darken it. So I'm going to use my bigger brush so that I can just, right? And it's going to be a little ticklish here because I stopped here and I should have been smarter and pulled this over, but I was distracted. You know, I wanted to get it in here. So I'm going to try not to make a darker band by overlapping. And I can fix that down the road. It just is maybe a little bit tedious to fix. So I'm mixing up, I know you guys can't see my palette now. I'm mixing another dark glaze for here with ultramarine blue and burnt umber let's see. I think I made it on the bluer side. I didn't want it to be too warm. Let me see what I've got going on here. Maybe a little bit more burnt umber in my mixture. Oops. As usual, maybe I grabbed too much. Okay. There. So, because I'm using a large brush, I can do this quickly. I can cover ground quickly. And I'm not necessarily leaving a lot of brush strokes. We're going to be talking about brush stroke here. So I can then, so I want to not have too much overlap. I'm having to kind of move around because of the, I have to move my body around to see what I'm doing because of glare from the light, the skylights actually. I have to say that skylights actually create more problems than they solve for me. All right. So I'm going to bring this down, and I can even come all the way over my drapery and decide. So I've come all the way over my drapery, and I sort of like that. And I can take my paper towel and I can remove some glaze if I want, so that we just have the feeling of drapery coming back, and everything else kind of fades into the background. That's okay with me. And here I don't really want to have a lot of texture. That's just my own personal preference. So now I want to move over here. And the thing is that you can't necessarily see this on camera because it doesn't pick up as much nuances, but I might take some lighter blue and bring it over up here. But I'm going to mix up something for over here so that I can indicate. We call this indicating. You want to indicate and suggest drapery back here. So I'm picking up some more ultramarine blue, and I am neutralizing it with some burnt umber again. Let's see. And I'm adding some Viridian. My Viridian's a little bit skinned over. Okay. And I also want just a tiny little bit of white so that it's not as dark. Because Viridian is also a dark color when it comes out of the tube, and it will create a dark mixture. And I want this to be just a tiny bit lighter in value. Let me see if I can get this mixture maybe about where I want it. And I'm still using my big brush because, well, it's just easier. I've got all this paint on it. I wanted to come up to this leaf, this blueberry leaf here. So now you can actually see that because I'm looking at my tablet. You can see that little bit of contrast. And in fact, on the Nikon, what I'm looking at on my tablet, you can actually see it more than I can see it in real life. So it's more subtle in real life, but you can see what I've done here. And now I'm going to bring this down, and I want to do a little bit here behind this handle. I don't know, do I want to pick this handle out or not? So again, you're seeing more than I am in real life because the camera is picking that up. I've got my paper towel here, and I'm going to just pull that across. So now I want to suggest this, a little drapery, and I want there to be just a little bit more light. Maybe this is a mistake, but I can always fix it. So I can come across here. Oops, maybe more than I wanted. See, I like it better. I like it better with the camera showing than in real life. So let's see. I'm pulling some paint off my brush with my paper towel so that I can pick up more paint and make a darker mixture. But I also want to indicate. So, you know, there's a lot of playing with paint here. I probably play more with glazes and transparencies than your other instructors who probably work more in opaque paint. I think that's fairly typical. But I think that a lot of painting is about playing with the paint, the texture, and figuring out what you can do with it and what the effects are of your different brushes, how they behave, what effects they create. So right now I'm actually pulling paint off and I'm pushing it around. And I'm looking at this thing in real life, and so I'm doing some things that you guys might think is unnecessary, but so now I can assess what I've done, and sometimes I have to go a day and decide. So I thought that I wanted to come behind this handle, but I decided against it. I didn't like it, but I do like this up here. And probably one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be putting some more darks in here. You can't see it as well as I can, but I am going to be picking out lights up here too. So before I go and do that though, I'm rinsing my brush out here and I want to resolve, whoops, I'm throwing my brush. Okay. I want to resolve this a little bit in here. Then I will move down to this foreground. So you can see I am focusing on larger areas first before I get into the nitpicky. Let's see. Rinsing my brush here, so I'm just taking a moment because I don't want it to turn into a hard fossilized brush. Okay, so I want to play around with this right in here a little bit. Let's see. I'm going to see what happens if I make it a little more prominent than it is. I'm mixing up an opaque, a more opaque than usual version of this color here. So I'm adding some white to it so that it will be opaque because this is mostly alizarin crimson based, and alizarin is transparent. It's a dye. So, all right, and this is sort of a violet color, so I'm adding some ultramarine blue. Now let's see if I'm, getting close here. This looks like it's too dark, but let's see. So it's a little too dark. I'm going to sneak in a little bit more white. Let's see if I'm closer here. Okay. I don't want to make this too prominent, but I just want to make it look more intentional than it did. Softening the edge that is against the shadow. So this is a small thing, but I just wanted to have it be more intentional. There we go. Now I'm going to work on this in front. Since I have this color already that's similar to the drapery color, and I've added some glue to it so that it's, let's see. So if I come in now, so you can see that this is dark like this over here. But I'm going to add just a tiny bit of white that's going to lighten the value and cool it down a little bit. Let's see. So cooling it down will also keep it from popping forward so much. you can see that I've left a little edge here up against the shadow. And I can play around with that because that's going to be, sometimes it's going to be more intense and sometimes it's going to be less intense. But that edge gives us the feeling that the pot is sitting on the surface. It gives us the feeling that this apple is sitting on the surface too. You can see that I'm kind of making it less and then letting it be more apparent right where the objects are sitting on the surface. So I can sit back now and decide if I like what I've done. And I can come in and go, well, I'd like a little bit less. There we go. Just a little less definite there. Pulling it up. There. Okay. So I want to come over here and make adjustments over here too, so that this is not so coming forward so much. I've added a little bit of white, more white to my mixture and a little bit more blue to counteract, like this was pretty warm over here. And so as this is going away from the pot, I'm actually making it cooler. I've got one of my brushes that I've already ruined. So, you know, it looks kind of, it's a little bit on the splayed side. So I can scrub with it without feeling like I'm throwing money down the drain. I can pick up, if I want, I can pick up just a little bit of this paint to allow the brighter paint to come through. Soften the edge, there we go. So now I just have sort of a glow up against that shadow. And I'd like to make it less as it goes away from the pot. So I want to darken the shadow of the apple as it's up against this pot, even though it looks darker when I'm looking at my tablet. I see that for you guys it looks darker, but it doesn't look that dark to me in real life. So I've got some of this neutral that I've mixed up for the background and everything. And I think I probably need a little bit more umber in this. So let's see how this works here. Yeah. It's a little bit too cool. I'm going to add, even though I added burnt umber to it, it's still a little bit too cool. I'm going to add a little bit of red to it, just a tiny bit. You probably can't see the coolness on the camera. It's not going to pick up that kind of nuance, unfortunately. That's one of the drawbacks. Picking up a fuzz there. So I'm going to darken. I'm wondering how much I should darken it. Actually, I'm just not going to bother with it right now. I was going to darken these negative spaces, but I'm not going to bother with that right now. I just want to stick to more of the main stuff that we're dealing with here. So I want to see if I can put in a little bit of reflected light here. Maybe soften this shadow. This is a form shadow here. Soften that and warm it up. And move on to the blueberry leaves. So let's see what it's going to take, because this is the kind of thing I don't really have. I mean, I have my pot in front of me, but it's not, but I've deviated from what I'm seeing here. So I need a little bit more white because I'm not seeing anything happen there. So I don't really have a reference now that's close to what I'm painting. So I'm having to, whoa, maybe too white, huh? Let's see. So reflected light would tend to be warm because of the warm sheet that it's all sitting on. So I'm adding a little bit of cadmium red here, but it's not, still too cool. Let's see if I can. And one reason it's too cool is because, let's see, I'm going to use some alizarin. Now, alizarin's pretty powerful. So now I've made a little bit more of an effect in terms of reflecting this purple down here, magenta, whatever. Reflected light is pretty soft and subtle. I don't want to be too heavy-handed with it. I am going to bring it up here a little bit. Now, it's pretty specific. If it's reflecting this violet from the drapery down here, it's not going to come up here. It's not reflecting up here. What's up here is reflecting something from over to the left, like the white walls of my studio. So if I want to put some reflected light in higher up, then I need to change the color that I'm putting in here. So I can kind of come in. So again, it's pretty light and pretty cool, huh? Especially for you guys. Again, it's not as dramatic for me in real life as it is for you on the camera. Let's see. So this actually is flat. This actually goes underneath the handle. So I'm pushing over. So by putting in a reflected light, I'm creating a core shadow. And I'm probably going to heighten the core shadow down here. Let me see before I do that. I want to play with this a little bit more here. So the amount of this kind of reflection down here is going to depend upon how shiny your pot is, because a shinier pot is going to have a harder edged reflection. So, and this is sort of, this pot has kind of a matte surface to it. So now I'm going to come in and play with this form shadow here, because I think it needs to be more subtle, but also warmer in color. Okay. I'm mixing up a warm color that's way too dark right now. So I've got to lighten it up, but it's still, this is really pretty neutralized. It's not extremely warm. It's all relative, right? So I'm bringing some blue in to neutralize my mixture, and we'll see if I'm close to what I need it to be. So I can look on my brush sometimes and compare it and get a feeling for how close I am. You can see that I'm light. It needs to be darker than I thought. So I'm adding some neutrals to my mixture. Let's see. Let's see what we got here. Better. So I'm going to I'm feeling out, because I felt as though the light is actually coming more subtly across the surface. So okay. So I'm using my brush to spread the paint so that it's creating a smooth transition. Now we're going to talk about brushstroke. And you can, and I can actually play with my painting and demonstrate brushstroke on Monday. So I'm actually softening this whole gradation and this core shadow here by pulling some of this paint over into it. So this can really be kind of a process where, whoops, I'm throwing my brush again. Whoops, I'm kicking my easel. Because I'm not working from a setup that's really exactly what I'm seeing, I'm really not painting what I'm seeing, and I'm really feeling this out. I'm going, how does this feel to me? What do I, am I believing this or am I not? As an observer, right? As the person looking at the art. So I'm kind of feeling out the form here and softening my gradation. Yeah, the camera really picks up some interesting stuff. I'm looking at my tablet and going, wow. Oops. And I decided to pull it down here too. I think I can bring some more light a little bit down in here. All right. I'm happier with that at the moment. So now I want to come up here and put a highlight in here and start to play around with these blueberry leaves. Use a different brush because now I'm starting to get into smaller forms with the blueberry brush, with the blueberry leaves. So I'm picking up my smaller brushes, rinsing out my nice splayed brush that I just used to scrub stuff. Now another thing that I'd like to do would be to pick up just a little bit more light on this handle, but I'm going to let that wait. So again, when I'm looking at my tablet, the way the camera is picking things up, this looks lighter than it does in real life when I'm looking at the painting. But I feel as though, so it's sort of an instinctive thing as I'm looking at, as I'm a viewer looking across this form, moving across the painting, I want something to pick up my eye right here, something to attract the eye over. And if this is too flat, then it won't pull my eye over. And so that's what I'm thinking here with a little bit of light, which actually I can see. That actually I do see in real life. There's a little bit of light, probably reflected light hitting over here. So let's see, I want to put in a highlight back here. And then play around with my leaves. Which, see, for me, this is the fun part. This is a fun part. I like to play around with pushing and pulling the details. So again, I'm looking for reference, I'm looking at this highlight, and it's not completely white. I've made it warmer. I've added a little bit of yellow to it, so it's not so cold because it didn't work when I made it completely titanium white. Titanium white is pretty cold. Let's see here. So you can still see that it's what I put down is cold, colder than, even though I've added some yellow to this mixture, it looks really bluish. So I'm warming it up even more. So this highlight is not even remotely pure white. It's definitely modified and warmed up. So let me get, there we go. It's a little bit better. There's a little bit of red reflection that I'm seeing from the blueberry leaves, so I'm just going to play with that a little bit. And then there is a highlight here on the lip of the jug. Let's see if the color that I have here is going to work. It just seems as though it needs to be lighter, but I need a little bit more of a blob of paint here. Didn't have quite enough to. There we go. So once I put a brush stroke like that down, I can come in and adjust it, which is what I'm going to do. Based on what I'm seeing. Which is kind of interesting, the light's hitting here. And sometimes I have to do it again. As I figure out what I'm seeing and what works, what looks right, what doesn't look right, I play with it, mess with it, and start to hone in on what I'm looking for. Anyway, good enough for the moment. And I'm seeing that this is warm right in here. Let's see if I can warm that up. So now I'd like to come in with my blueberries. And I think I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you guys with the camera. Wondering how I'm doing for time, because, you know, Zoom could just cut me off at 45 minutes because that's their limit. I'm going to have to get up here and mess with this camera and see if I can get it zoomed in on blueberries here. Let's see. I'll have to adjust it again. Okay, so that's about as good, as close as this zoom lens is going to get. Let's see. Kind of sags a bit. There we go. All right, so that's looking at the right. Okay. So I no longer have my apricot leaves, so I'm kind of, again, I'm making it up. I'm making this up. So what I want to do is probably get a brush here. Okay. I'm going to lighten these a little bit more. This is the back of the blueberry leaves. I'm going to sharpen up the edges of what I want to sharpen up. For instance, this edge right here has softened. I can reestablish some of these stems here and pull out this edge toward the viewer. So I'm going to get started on doing those things and see if we can't lead the viewer up here to find this to be interesting. That's basically what we want to do. And we do that by having some hard edges, having an interesting play of hard versus soft. Let's see, I want to do, and sometimes you're finding out as you're doing it what you want and what you don't want. So you can see that I've got too light. So I'm going to mix up a darker red. So now I have a hard edge there. I want to bring up that stem and this stem also a little bit lighter there so that it differentiates from the leaf. And so if I do something and I don't like it, I can just take it off. I don't want to make everything equal. I want there to be a little bit of surprise. So let's see, okay. Another thing to think about is when you have a hard edge here, you don't necessarily want to have a similarly hard edge on the other side. So another thing that I can do here though, is I can mix up some dark with ultramarine blue and burnt umber. And I can sharpen what I want to sharpen. So I can reinforce. So here I can make a sharp edge by coming in with this dark here. Again, that's showing up more on your camera than it is on the painting itself. I can refine my drawing, redraw. But I don't want to have everything be sharp. So you notice that I'm mostly concentrating my sharpness on the areas that are where the light is hitting, where I want the eye to go. I want the viewer's eye to go to those places where the eye is hitting. I mean, where the light is hitting, sorry. And I, for instance, with the stem, I want it to be undulating. I don't want it to be one straight, light line. I want the viewer to feel as though it moves in and out in space and into shadow and out of shadow. So I'm going to darken this bit right here. So in and out of shadow, in and out of space. So now I want to just pop this, fold it over. And what I found is that it's almost always less than I think I almost always need less than I think. Right, let's see if I actually using some white with some alizarin crimson, it makes a cooler pink. Let's see, maybe it's 2. Woo, wahoo. So that shows you, I mean, I'm not even using white there. So that shows you how I haven't even scratched the surface of using everything that's available to me in terms of value. So I feel like that's too much. That's too much. There we go. It's also a little too cool. So my alizarin crimson plan turned out to be too cool. So I'm coming in with something that's got a little bit more yellow in it. There we go. And I'm asking myself, do I really want this strong point on the end of that? I feel like it's too sharp. I'm going to soften it here. There we go. So when something's really sharp and it draws your eye, you have to ask yourself, is that what I want? Do I want it to draw my eye? So over here. So I can correct something. There we go. Just looking at, so I want this leaf, this folded over leaf to feel as though it's coming. Sorry, I'm used to having the, you guys can't see my hands. Okay, good to know. I want this folded over leaf to look as though it's coming toward us and not just like a flat shape. So I'm taking a little bit of glaze with my dark neutral and I'm softening it as it moves back into space. All right, so now I want to do a similar thing here. It's okay with me that these leaves drop into darkness, but I'm going to punch them a little bit more here. Draw the eye a little bit more. All right, so now I have this set of leaves here. I want to do a similar thing here with this folded over leaf. Kind of muffed it there, so I can have this little tiny flat that I'm using here too, and I'm just going to clean that up. So this little bit here describes the far edge of this leaf, and so I emphasized it a little bit. And now, you know, sometimes I do this kind of work and then I walk away from it. And the next day I come back and I go, oh, and I realize I can go further. And I do, I go further. And I can push it further. All right, so that's too cool. I want to add a little bit of cadmium orange to this to warm it up. But I want this edge of this leaf to come forward, so I have to figure out what is going to work. I can clean up here, clean up my line. I'm going to use this other brush to do that. And so this leaf, it curls, obviously it curls toward us. So I don't want to have this line be all the same value. It needs to darken as it comes towards us here. So that's fine. There we go. I'm having the lightest part be up here. I want to have this be peeked out a little bit against that dark also. Oh, it's our dog. She wants to come in, so he's barking. So I want it to look dimensional, and right now this looks flat to me. So I have to find what amount of value here is going to work. There. So we've got a little bit of light here. We can even have less light. There. And then we have a lost edge. And now I want to figure out how this edge is going to work here. So like I said before, it's almost always less than I think. I need almost always less. That's starting to work better. So I have this edge coming forward here. But I still can see the top edge here. So there. And I'm going to grab some of this dark that I've mixed up and see if I can. Ooh, yes, that is quite dark. Right. It's dark and it's cool, so I'm going to get some burnt umber here so that I get a warmer shadow on this leaf here. So I don't want it to be so dark that it looks like a whole separate shape, and it's pretty dark. So I'm going to soften this, make it make sense. I need to make it make sense. And as it comes down here, the contrast is less. Still seems pretty dark. Let's see. So you can see how this line is, for me, this line is too continuous and I want to lose part of it. So I'm going to do something to make it, to lose part of it. Yeah. That's better. Okay, and so now this leaf, I'm going to just differentiate there. So I made it so that we can see a difference between this leaf in front and the leaf behind. There. And I'm going to darken this right here, mixing a darker red, see what I need here. I kind of want to lose this a little bit into the background. Running out of medium here. Darkening it so that it's close to the background, and I can, if I want to, play around with that outside edge. I can pick this out again. decide whether I want to lose this edge or not. Have this light pink mixed up from the back sides of those leaves. I'm just going to see if I can't, it needs to be warmer, see if I can't pop this right here, although maybe it won't work very well. See, I don't think that's working. So I'm going to change it to some red here. That's better. Okay. So now we have this leaf. I'm using some red just to liven it up because it's kind of a dark shape. And this draws our eye because of how dark and thin this is, and it has a sharp edge. That tip of that leaf draws our eye. So I don't think it's a bad thing. And in fact, I want to darken the rest of the leaf a little bit to draw our eye a little bit more here. So, and then I can decide how I feel about that. I think it's a little too much. I'm just gonna soften it right there. And we have this leaf, which I'd like to be more orangier. It's kind of purpley, and I think I want it to be more of a red, more of an orangey red here. So I can come in with an orangey red glaze. This is kind of a thick, opaque glaze there. Woo! And that's too much. And actually, I think I'm going to take some cadmium orange and just liven this up a little bit here too. A little bit off, kind of shaping it. There we go. So now this is it's too dark in value, and it's too, now it's too vibrant, too distinct, and this edge is hard. And so I need to soften it one way or the other, whether I cool it down. So, I used that glaze and it went woohoo. So I'm cooling it down. It's a little better. So I can also, like I did here, I can pick this up, the stem. Let's see what we got. So that's pretty powerful. I use my finger to pick up a little bit of that paint. And again, like this stem over here, that one, I don't want this to be too continuous. I want it to undulate. So I've got, I picked out this bit up here, and then I'm going to pick out a little bit more down here. Our eyes will connect the dots. But if we make it too much of a line, it's going to look like a line. We'll go, well, that's a line, that's not a stem. Here. Pulling a little bit more of that off of there. If I want to, I can clarify it. So I've got this dark mixed up, remember? So picked up a little bit of it. I come in here and go, okay. There. This little tiny brush is starting to degrade, and I'm having trouble. It's getting furry. So It's not really giving me a good point the way I'd like. Want this to be more prominent, but I also but every time I put it in there, it doesn't quite work. So I just, I'm like, huh. Let's up. So now I'm looking at this, and I feel as though I pushed this part of this leaf back too far. So I'm going to pick up some of what I put down. Go. So, I put something in there and then I go, oh, no, I don't like that. So now I am going to come in and see how I like putting a indication of the other side of this leaf on this other side here. And I don't have to outline the whole leaf. I can just put that little bit there and say, you finish the rest. So let's see. What else am I going to do? So this can be not always, a single day thing. You can walk away from it and come back and see what you think. I'm going to push this stem back a little bit. And now see if I can't figure out this leaf here a little bit better, and then I'm going to go ahead actually and pick out that little stem there. Right. I'm going to move my camera because you can't really see. Whoa, we're not that far. Back. There we go. Up. Okay. Huh. Hard to get it just right. So a little bit of a Goldilocks there. Too hot, too cold, never just right. All right, so I'm going to take this out. Here. Can kind of sculpt it a little bit, give it a little bit of a curve maybe. Yeah. Break it up. And almost done with this stage of things. Bring this down here. I don't want to have, like, this leaf comes down to the edge of right in here. And I don't want to point at that. I want to keep it soft as this convergence hits this edge. I don't want to have a hard point coming into this lip. I'm going to just refine this a little bit here. Refining that little. But I don't really want to call attention to the fact that this point comes down into there. In fact, I want to say this lip comes in front and not the other way around. Okay. So I'm done for now, but I think that I would probably, well, I've got more time, I'm gonna mess around with this stuff a little bit more. You know, when I sit back and I go, okay, I can actually push some things further here. And so why not? I still want this to be lighter. So I'm going to maybe, yeah, good enough. And I'm going to, let's see, take some warm cadmium red, cadmium orange here, and warm up this part of this here. Let's see if this is too much. Might be a little too much. Over here. Okay, let's see. Starting to see how to make this work. Okay. So, whoops. I need to pick up, I got a little bit of paint back here. Pick this up. Come on. Oh, I got too much paint in this brush to pick that up. So I think that I would probably, again, I'd soften this again. I think it's too hard edged. That's why I did it before. I softened it before. Now it's not too hard of an edge. And so let's see. I can zoom out effectively. Whoa. And let's see, I'll zoom back in a little bit. Okay. Looking a little bit on the yellow side. I'm not sure why the camera's picking up, but now you can see that I've just picked up bits of light to lead the viewer, right? And then I'd like to put a little bit of light here. I'll do that. If Zoom isn't cutting me off yet, and you know, play around with putting a little bit of light right there. Probably needs to be warm, warmer than I think. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Yep, does need to be warmer than I think. So I'm not putting down something that's super, super light. Not super light in value. So now I just have this tiny little bit that's showing us where the edge of this handle is. And I am basing it off of what I see here, where I see the light hitting. So you have more than one chance at this. You can put it in and then you can blow it, and then you can put it in again. And kind of sculpt it, take some out, put some in, you know, play around with this. So for today, I would probably play with that a little bit more. I'm not really quite happy with this. So for today, that's the end of my offering. I want to play around with Brushstroke on Monday. Talk about Brushstroke. Probably wreck this thing a little bit with some Brushstroke. Probably change it completely. So that's what's on the agenda for Monday. Okay. Okay, you guys, I'll see you on Monday. We'll do some more to this thing.